4,000-year-old Egyptian handprint discovered by Cambridge researchers. Imagine uncovering a piece of history that has been hidden for 4,000 years. Researchers from Cambridge have made an astonishing discovery: a handprint on an ancient Egyptian tomb offering, which was found while curators were preparing for an upcoming exhibition. This remarkable find was made by scholars at the University of Cambridge on a unique artifact known as a soul house. These soul houses are clay models shaped like buildings and are typically placed in burial sites. Curator Helen Strudwick expressed her excitement about the discovery, noting that the complete handprint, which dates back to between 2055 and 1650 BC, is both rare and thrilling. This ceramic piece will be showcased in the university's exhibition titled Made in Ancient Egypt, set to open at the Fitzwilliam Museum on October 3rd. Strudwick, who serves as a senior Egyptologist at the Fitzwilliam Museum, elaborated on the significance of the find. While we have seen traces of fingerprints left in wet varnish or on coffins during decoration, discovering a complete handprint beneath this soul house is truly exceptional. This imprint was likely made by the artisan who crafted it, touching the clay before it had a chance to dry. I have never encountered such a well-preserved handprint on an Egyptian artifact before. The exhibition aims to shed light on the individuals who were responsible for creating ancient Egyptian crafts. Although ceramics were commonly used, and many pottery pieces have survived through the ages, there is surprisingly little known about the potters themselves compared to other craftsmen from ancient Egypt. The museum suggests that the widespread availability and relatively low value of pottery may have influenced the social standing of potters. In fact, a historical text known as the Teaching of Ket even compares potters to pigs that wallow in mud, highlighting the low regard in which they were held. Soul houses served a dual purpose. They could function as offering trays or as a dwelling place for the soul of the deceased within the tomb. These artifacts typically featured an open front where offerings, such as loaves of bread, lettuce, and even an ox's head were placed. Upon analyzing the soul house, researchers discovered that the potter initially constructed a framework using wooden sticks, which was then covered with clay to create a two-story building supported by pillars. During the firing process, the wooden framework would burn away, leaving behind empty spaces. The handprint was likely made when the potter moved the soul house from the workshop to allow it to dry before it was placed in the kiln for firing. While the tales of famous Egyptian rulers like Tutankhamun often capture the public's imagination, the artisans who created these remarkable artifacts frequently go unnoticed. The Made in Ancient Egypt exhibition seeks to highlight who these craftsmen were, how they perceived themselves, and how they were viewed by their fellow Egyptians. What do you think about the way ancient artisans have been portrayed in history? Do you believe their contributions deserve more recognition? Share your thoughts in the comments. Rare 4,000-year-old handprint reveals forgotten potters of ancient Egypt. One ancient touch can rewrite history. And that's exactly what's happening with the recent find of a 4,000-year-old handprint etched in an Egyptian artifact. Imagine the silent fingerprint of a forgotten artisan bringing the world of ancient Egypt quietly, but vividly, back to life. But here's where things get unexpectedly intriguing. This isn't just another relic. It's an actual handprint that bridges the gap between a nameless potter and our modern curiosity. Archaeologists at the University of Cambridge made this surprising discovery as they were preparing several artifacts for public display. Their efforts culminated in the showcasing of this unusual item at the school's Made in Ancient Egypt exhibition, scheduled for the opening of the Fitzwilliam Museum in October, a detail the BBC also reported. At the heart of this discovery is a so-called soul house, a small clay replica of a home, traditionally left in tombs as an offering meant to comfort the departed in the afterlife. Turning the piece over, researchers found something few expected: a clear, unmistakable full handprint pressed into the underside of this 4,000-year-old object. For context, this soul house originates from Egypt's Middle Kingdom between 2055 and 1550 BC, a time remarkable for both artistic innovation and social stratification. Dr. Helen Strudwick, a leading Egyptologist at the museum, explains, while we've occasionally encountered stray finger marks in ancient paint or coffin decorations, discovering a complete handprint is truly rare and thrilling. This mark was left by the creator, who simply handled the soul house before the clay dried. In my entire career, I've never come across such a complete impression on an Egyptian piece. Let's linger for a moment on workmanship in ancient Egypt. The construction of a soul house involved forming a sturdy frame out of wood, then shaping clay around it to resemble a multi-story dwelling, complete with pillars and symbolic foods like bread, lettuce, and even an ox's head offered at its open front. When fired in a kiln, the supporting wood burned away, leaving hollow spaces that preserved the elaborate clay structure. Visualize it, a house for the soul, built with unmistakable care, yet destined to be buried. Yet here's the part most people miss. Despite the enormous quantity and utility of pottery in ancient Egypt, hardly anything is known about the anonymous artisans who made them. These potters typically occupied the very bottom rungs of Egyptian society, considered far less influential than the goldsmiths and stonemasons whose names sometimes appear in surviving records. In fact, a cautionary ancient text called the Teaching of Ket was even cited by the Fitzwilliam Museum to illustrate their plight, comparing potters to pigs rolling around in mud. Controversial? Perhaps, but certainly revealing of social divisions that shaped daily life. This raises a host of compelling questions. Do such fingerprints of ordinary people matter as much as the grand achievements of kings and pharaohs in our understanding of the past? And does recognizing the physical mark of a forgotten craftsperson help rebalance the story of history, or does it simply tease us with what's lost? Share your thoughts below. Who do you think should get the most attention in our retelling of the ancient world? Its rulers, its artists, or its everyday workers? 4,000-year-old handprint found in Egyptian tomb, a glimpse into the past. Imagine touching history with your bare hands. Now, picture doing so quite literally, as a 4,000-year-old handprint has been uncovered on a clay model destined for an ancient Egyptian tomb. This astonishing discovery was made during the preparations for an exhibition at the Fitzwilliam Museum in Cambridge. But here's where it gets controversial. While some experts are thrilled, others question the ethical implications of such finds. Let's dive in and explore the fascinating details and the debate surrounding this remarkable artifact. The complete handprint, described as both rare and exciting, was likely left by the artisan who crafted the item, accidentally pressing their hand into the clay before it had a chance to dry. This imprint was found on the base of what is known as a soul house, a clay model shaped like a building intended to be placed within a burial chamber. These soul houses served multiple purposes, acting as offering trays or providing a dwelling for the deceased spirit within the tomb. The specific model bearing the handprint has been dated to around 2055 to 1650 BCE, a time when such practices were common in ancient Egyptian funerary rituals. The model features an open front space where food offerings were laid out. In this particular example, loaves of bread, a lettuce, and an ox's head were included, symbolizing sustenance for the journey into the afterlife. Helen Strudwick, the senior Egyptologist at the Fitzwilliam Museum, expressed her excitement about the find, stating, "We've spotted traces of fingerprints left in wet varnish or on a coffin in the decoration, but it is rare and exciting to find a complete handprint underneath this soul house." She went on to explain that this handprint was left by the maker who touched it before the clay dried, adding, "I have never seen such a complete handprint on an Egyptian object before." Strudwick, who is also the curator of the museum's new Made in Ancient Egypt exhibition, painted a vivid picture of the artisan's actions. You can just imagine the person who made this picking it up to move it out of the workshop to dry before firing. This intimate connection to the past is precisely what the exhibition aims to highlight, bringing viewers closer to the artisans and their craft. And this is the part most people miss, the personal touch, the human element behind these ancient artifacts. The Soul House itself is a marvel of ancient engineering. Analysis suggests that the potter first created a framework of wooden sticks, which were then coated with clay to form a two-story building supported by pillars. Staircases were meticulously formed by pinching the wet clay. During the firing process, the wooden framework burned away, leaving empty spaces in its place. The handprint found underneath was likely made when someone, possibly the potter, moved the house out of the workshop to dry before firing in a kiln. Ceramics were ubiquitous in ancient Egypt, serving both functional and decorative purposes. The Soul House will be on display in Fitzwilliam's Made in Ancient Egypt exhibition, opening to the public on October 3rd. But here's a question to ponder. Should we be more concerned with preserving these artifacts or with understanding the lives of those who created them? What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let's spark a lively debate.